ready for round 2 of the Euro F1 Sidecar Challenge. Welcome to Snetterton.
We're in Norfolk, near Thetford, at the 1.95-mile Snetterton circuit on, at the moment, what is a dry day for round 2 of the Euro F1 Sidecar Challenge, sponsored by Eastern Airways. This circuit, first used for racing in 1951, is ready to rock and roll for round 2. But first of all, let's rewind to round 1 back in Pembrey in South Wales. And as expected, it turned out to be a battle between the Reeves and Cluze outfits and the Birchalls, of course. 77, though, straight into the lead. It is Tim Reeves with his new passenger, Gregory Cluze, looking to make an impression on their first visit here to Pembrey. They got straight into the lead, and basically that was all anybody saw of them for the rest of the day. But plenty of action going on behind them, with the Birchalls making up from a less than stellar start, as they snuck into second place before making a small mistake, which then put them back down the order. Luckily, they kept the engine revving, kept things going, but at the front, that made it very easy for Tim Reeves to take his first victory of the day. Second place, it is the Schofield outfit there, but it was all about Reeves and, as we say, Gregory Cluze. Victory for them on what was a bright and sunny day at round 1. They celebrate. What a way to start their partnership leading into the World Championships, which were coming up a week after this event. Race 2, pretty much the same story again. Into the first turn, pole position, they're making the most of that, but it was Schofield and Thomas who got there first of all. And just to make things interesting, they got the whole shot this time as we head off onto the second race, but already Reeves and Cluze are through. On board, though, with Peter and Richardson, who overshoot one of the corners there straight away, but managed to cut back in tight. But the pattern's set at the moment at the front. Reeves and Cluze, but Schofield and Thomas on a good second position. They had a very good day at the opening round, making it very hard work for current world champion, the Birchalls, to get past them. But clear track ahead. Birchall's headed off after Reeves and Cluze as the rest of the pack streamed through. But it was a perfect day at the office for Reeves and Cluze. 3 out of 3. They celebrate as they cross the line. A perfect day for them at Pembrey, round 1. Number 1, he signals Tim Reeves, of course, the former world champion himself. 75-point maximum takes them to the top of the table in front of Schofield, Thomas, the Birchalls in third place, and some ground to make up. James and Morgan, Edwards and Wynne rounding out the top 5. That's the standings after round 1 as we now move ready into round 2 at Snetterton. Sidecar racing is a peculiar sport. Let's hear from Steve Day down in the paddock about some of the more technical issues involved.
Well, for getting the battles on circuit, one of the biggest challenges here this weekend is deciding whether to go for Yokohamas or Avons. Now, we spoke to one man that knows quite a bit about both sets of tyres, and he'll be able to tell us a bit more about this big battle. Steve Webster, Avon and Yokohama are obviously the preferred choice in sidecars, but what are the differences between these two tyres?
I think the main thing was Avon have just come back into the into swing of things really with the new tyres that they're developing. But in the past, when I'm going back sort of like 15 years, Avons were tended to be more of a tyre which lasted a lot longer and were a lot more durable, used at warm circuits and abrasive tracks. The Yokohamas were a little bit softer and tended to get more initial grip, but then would fly to bits if they got too hot. So I think what's happened now, Avon have upped the ante and made some new tyres, some new compounds, and they're now on a par with the Yokohama tyres.
Obviously, Tim Reeves is out on Yokohamas. You've got the Birchalls on Avons as well as Schofield. So there really is a mix of drivers out there choosing which tyres to have.
Yeah, it's really good because you've got probably the best drivers, one on Avons and one on Yokohamas. It's a real little war going on, as well as the riding now with the tyres as well. So
here at Snetterton, obviously predominantly a right-handed circuit, do you find the gradient of the tyre wears on one side?
Yeah, the lads will know that. the good teams will know that, and when they come here they'll adjust the bike accordingly and set the tyres up a little bit different to make sure the tyres are working right way across the field as such. But sometimes they kind of get more abrasive on one side, and you just have to, you know, make do really.
Going from a twisty circuit like Pembrey to a straight circuit here at Snetterton, what about tyre pressures? Does that change?
I think the tyre pressures won't change too much on the slicks. Obviously, when they go into the wet compounds and the intermediates, they'll vary the pressures a bit to try and get some more grip, especially with the wets. Drop the pressures a little bit to make it work a little bit more, and generate a little bit more heat in there as well.
And if you're a betting man, who's going to win the weekend, Avons or Yokohamas?
I don't know, a lot depends on the weather really, because of the new wet that Avon have brought out. Seems to be going quite well with Ben and Tom on their bike, so let's see what happens.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on the tyre war. But first, let's go over to Steve Day to talk through a lap of the circuit.
Well, thanks very much, Roger. Down the start-finish straight we are then at Snetterton, on board with Alan Schofield and Steve Thomas, of course, Pembrey hotshotters. Into the first corner here is the first opportunity for overtaking. Double apex right-hander. That, of course, Richie's corner, and a will power slide on the exit. Then it's down the gears to one of the tightest right-handers. Very important, though, this is Sears, to get onto the power as early as possible, because it leads you onto what is the longest straight in Great Britain, and certainly the longest straight on our calendar, the Revet Straight. Yep, flat out down here, up to 6th gear, and then you can see the Snetterton Bridge approaching down through the gears and then into the S's. This is another overtaking opportunity if you dare. Over to the left and then down another gear to the right. These are the S's, and then it's a little short stretch up here. You can see the new banking all the way around the outside for spectators. This is the bomb hole, a very, very quick right-hander, which leads you into one of the longest right-handers in Great Britain. This, of course, Coram Curve. Not really any room for overtaking around here, but it's all about setting yourself up into here, the best position for overtaking into Russell Chicane. Right and then left and then back onto the start-finish straight. That is your lap of Snetterton. Roger, it's back over to you.
Thanks, Steve. 1.95 miles of fast-flowing circuit here at Snetterton. We are looking forward to a lot of track action here for round 2. But first of all, let's look at one of the more unusual outfits here, Barry James and Carl Morgan's number 3 outfit. And who better to take us through the outfit than former world champion Steve Webster.
So here we are with Barry and Carl's bike, and just to show you the difference between this bike, which is a 18-year-old chassis, and the new ones, more up-to-date ones. On Barry's bike here, we've got the front suspension, which is a trellis suspension. The monocoque stops short of the front wheel, unlike the modern one, which carries on to be more stiffer suspension. And when we come around to the back of the bike, we can see here different handles compared with the modern bikes, and also the different water system here compared with the modern bikes. They've tried to update it the best they possibly can, using obviously as much of the modern equipment as they can. But it always comes back down to the same thing. The chassis itself is quite an old chassis. I think if they were to get on a modern bike along with the opposition, we could maybe see some definitely good times from them. And when we look at the under tray, this has been built by somebody and added on. It's one that they've again done to try and update the modern bikes, the new ones. This is all carbon fibre, and they cost about £1,000 each, the new under trays. This is one that they've made themselves, or somebody's made for them, and as you can see, it's just as good a job, but obviously a lot cheaper, so the lads can do it and get it on the bike. And when we go to the front of the bike and we look at the actual steering of the mechanism, this is a bike that they only made 7 versions of this bike, and on the modern ones they don't have the link tube here, and obviously the chassis comes all the way to the front. So this is something that they've tried to update the best they possibly can with this machine. This is now as good as it's going to get for them.
Well, we've had a look at their bike, and now it's time to talk to driver and passenger. Barry James and Carl Morgan, fantastic Pembrey on the podium. Far beyond your expectations, I should imagine. Here at Snetterton, 9th on the grid before the Super Pole race, though.
Yeah, yesterday in the dry didn't go well at all. We never got a clear lap, so we're struggling really. We need the Super Pole race to get back up near the front for the races on tomorrow.
Now, obviously, with the Super Pole situation, it does give you an opportunity to get up the front end of the grid. What are the plans for the weekend? I mean, are you looking for another podium?
Well, we're hopeful, but we are lacking a bit of power, so we've got to be realistic. If we can get top 5, we'll be happy. We'll be going home happy.
And we'll bring you into the equation, Carl. You two have only been together. This is your first full season together. But what does it like out there in Snetterton? I'd imagine for a passenger, this is one of the easier circuits.
Yeah, a bit easier. You get a bit more of a rest down obviously the two long straights. There isn't a great deal amount of corners compared to Pembrey, say. So it is a bit easier for me. Depends though. Once you've got up to speed, you'll be pretty surprised.
One team who performed way above their expectations were Andy Peach and Charlie Richardson. Let's have a word with them.
Great qualifying. You're in second place, but apparently, Andy, you're not too happy with that.
No, I quite like Snetterton, so we were really hoping for the pole. We really wanted a dry session this morning. We just tried Avon tyres, working very well. We're going to now change to Avon wet tyres because second qualifying was wet, and see where we go from there. Ben seemed to be going very well on them, so that's our aim.
Obviously, we're here on this Sunday, and the weather's sort of a bit touch and go, so it could be a situation where we've intermediates on. How do you fancy your chances then?
I don't mind intermediates. I mean, we don't mind the damp, do we? But it's a bit of a lottery in the damp. You never know whether you're going to sort of end up on the slightly wetter bit or not. So, yeah, fingers crossed.
And Charlie, you're one of the youngest passengers in the Euro F1 Sidecar Challenge at 21 years old. How are you finding life in the sidecars?
I'm not finding it too bad, really. It seems to just gel with me with what I do.
And what do you think of your driver?
He's all right for now.
Well, thanks for talking to us, and hopefully we'll see you on the podium at the end of the weekend.
Cheers, Ed. Thanks. Bye.
So with the weather conditions looking decidedly iffy at the moment, the first track action, the Super Pole, comes to the line. Let's go over to Steve over on the grid.
So we're on the grid here for the Super Pole race for the Euro F1 Sidecars, and on pole position, of course, it's Reeves and Cluze, followed by Peach and Richardson. Now, let me just explain a little bit about what this Super Pole race is. Only the top 8 can be affected, so if Reeves and Cluze happen to have a bit of a bad race, they finish in 9th, or they finish in 10th or something like that, then that's where they'll have to start the race tomorrow. On the other hand, if you look a little bit further down, the Schofield, number 15, if they have a good race and manage to come up onto the podium, then they'll start from 3rd or 2nd. Also on the grid here, we've got Lovelock and Howard. The Birchalls are obviously here as well. We've got Pedman, Brian Pedder and Stedman, and of course Bygrave and Charlwood. This should be a great race. We're going to show you highlights of this, which should set us up for some cracking racing tomorrow.
So the first track action of the weekend, the first race action, is the Super Pole race. So as the riders get ready to launch away into this race on Sunday, let's just explain how Super Pole works. We've had qualification already, and the fastest riders then get allocated to the Super Pole position and their grid positions. This is a race, but the importance of the race, apart from scoring points, is to determine the grid positions going into the main race day, races 2 and 3, which will be held tomorrow. So, Steve, we're on the Snetterton circuit here. It's 1.95 miles of high-speed action, and this is a circuit, a former airfield track, of course, but it's different to what we normally come across.
It is, yeah. Of course, we were on the twisty parts of Pembrey a few weeks ago for round 1. The round after this, of course, is Alton Park, where there's not much room for rest. It's very flowing, and there you see we're on board with Alun Schofield and Steve Thomas as we head into the S's, and Roger Lovelock and Mark Howard have just gone up the inside. Now, this circuit isn't quite as simple as it looks. Other than the straights, it can get quite technical, certainly around the S's, the Bumhole, Corrams and Russells.
We've heard that tyres are going to be important this weekend, but also, as you can see there, it's all about braking manoeuvres because it's a very, very fast track. The longest straight, in fact, in the UK circuits at the moment, so speed's very, very high. But Steve, planning overtaking manoeuvres here, really, that's going to be part of the action.
Funnily enough, yeah, I spoke to Alun Schofield about overtaking manoeuvres at Snetterton as he's having a great battle here with Roger Lovelock again. Into the first corner, Richie's. Just at the end of the back straight there, into S's on the left-hander, and Russell's are the only 3 places he said that anyone would normally dare overtake. Of course, Tim Reeves is somewhat of an opportunist, and he may even try and make the odd overtaking manoeuvre elsewhere.
And that first corner at Rich's is going to be all important as well. But there you can see the number 1 outfit of the Birchalls there, with the Reeves and Cluze as number 77 behind. But right the way through, Alun Schofield and Steve Thomas, who had a fantastic first round at Pembrey, looking to back that up here in round 2. Look at the sky, though. Those clouds are very, very